Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.
Stuart, you're muted, mate. You're muted.
Ed?
There you go. Now you redo it now.
I'll do it again. This is Football Then and Now, episode 36, Bollocks for Life. And Chris, you are back. You are back in your rightful place, mate. And are you freezing, mate? Are you cold? Because I am bloody freezing here, mate.
Not at the moment, no. I was before. I was getting up for work the last couple of days. Bit of a cold snap, isn't it? Currently, and we're having hail. But it's one of them, innit? Get the heater on. Stop being so cheap.
These companies are rinsing us dry, and it's only going to get worse because fuel's going up again, isn't it? Of course, as with everything else, mate.
It's true.
I think we're accustomed to it now. We just expect stuff to go up, don't we? But nonetheless, you are back, and you've got a special on this date in football history, a fantastic bit of history from nearly 100 years ago, actually, mate. So, we're talking good 94 years ago, aren't we, when this happened? And on this date, the 22nd of November, take it away, Chris.
But also, actually, I've got a couple.
All right, go on then.
I was reading through, obviously, when we were sorting them out for today, and then there was actually quite a couple that I think we can just sort of throw in and discuss. But we're going off, the very first World Cup was held in Uruguay on this day, was obviously won by Uruguay, wasn't it, as well? Madness to think, as you say, it's almost over 100 years ago. The competition still obviously going mightily strong. We've seen, obviously, Germany, Brazil, France dominate, Spain dominate. England got one in there, didn't they, 1966? You've seen Wales a couple of times appear in it. Maybe more so they could get, themselves back in it this time round. It's just been, one of those sort of competitions, like even though if you don't even like football, and when it's on TV, everyone tunes in, don't they? Sheer amount of people, they say in their millions upon millions, not sounding like The Rock there, but, what entertain watching the World Cup. I think everyone gets involved. I think, the past couple of ones, we've seen England get mighty close, even though they didn't perform fantastically throughout the tournament. And I think everyone sort of gets together, as I said, like you don't even watch football and just get pulled in by it, don't they?
Absolutely. I'm just taking our logo out the corner because one man was covered there on the far right-hand side of our picture. So we've got everybody in shot there. The Uruguayans obviously won the tournament. It was in Montevideo, obviously the capital city. I actually watched one of these travel social media guys, and he went to the stadium. And it's still amazing now. He was in Montevideo with like a guide, like a Uruguayan tour guide. So she was giving all the history and stuff at the stadium. And I think a lot of the stadium has just been kept the same. Quite incredible. Like we say, nearly 100 years on, Chris. But a South American winner, a lot of South American winners of the tournament, right the way through, hasn't there?
Obviously, you haven't seen Uruguay, win since then, but we've seen fantastic players come through their country, playing the Premier League, playing Serie A, playing La Liga. Let's name a couple off here. Cavani, Suarez. Just to name a couple that really do stand out and have made a major impact in sport, in football, should we say, in general. A few bad ones, with Suarez, but fantastic striker, as well as with Cavani. He was at Paris Saint-Germain for such a long time, even into his 30s, before obviously he came to United, and constantly scored past us, if I remember rightly, Stuart, in 3 games we played against him with him in the team. But just shows you, he was prolific, wasn't he, Cavani, as well as Suarez was, and Suarez still playing to this day in America, isn't he? For Inter Miami, but and like I said, it's a captivating competition, and I think it's probably one of the only competitions I can sit here with my family who don't like football, but say when England are playing, or like it's been in the last couple of tournaments, Euros and the World Cup, where we've got to the final, everyone sort of gets involved with it. I think the pull of it pulls non-football supporters into the competition.
Many years of it going on, and of course there was a lot of there was lots of critique, wasn't there, about Qatar? But I think, at the end of the day, money talks, doesn't it, as well? We've probably spoken about that tournament. Everyone was up in arms over it, but I thought it was a solid tournament. Obviously, the time of year with this one years ago, as you say, it happened in November. It was later, the last one, wasn't it? The way they did it. We'll go to a summer tournament again, won't we, for the next one? But yeah, just incredible. What about you had some other ones from this day in football, didn't you, as well? You were saying just briefly.
Well, there were the two English-based. So the first modern rules of football were established in England in 1863 on this day. And England played their first international match in 1872 on this day as well.
It's all tying in this. We got
I know. That's why I thought I'd bring it up.
Just when I think you can't go further back with the 1930, you've gone into the 1800s, so I like it. We're going right back here because we never go back this far, do we, with the segment, Chris? So
I don't think, not always you get on these days. It's one of them where you can get a really good one, or you get an Everton heavy one like we've done previously because of certain things that have happened on the day. But obviously, today's on this day it's really good because you've got a lot of historic. It fits into the podcast, and the rules, coming into play in England, I think is fascinating because they've changed so much from back then to where we are now in present time. Some might say it's the rules aren't as to certain clubs these days, Stuart, but it's interesting. And as you say, we talked about England and the two finals they had in the last competitions, and on this day they had their very first one. We're talking well over 100 years. It's amazing and fascinating how the sport of football is, has been ever present for so long.
And still the world's biggest sport.
Yeah,
you say about other sports around the world, but yeah, football is still the granddaddy, isn't it? And there's so much sport on TV now, different sports and things like that. So to be at the tippy top still, because there's so much, influx from America, of course, the American sport and stuff like that. So yeah, it's the world game, isn't it? If we're going to term it something.
I think so. And I'm not a big supporter of international football, only because I think sometimes it's frustrating when, we say regards to the Premier League, we get 2 games in and then it's an international break, especially at the beginning of the season. You wait so long for the Premier League to come back. And before you know it, it's gone away for 2 weeks. And, either good or bad. It's frustrating, isn't it? But like I say, with the tournaments, the Euros, the World Cup, I suppose the Confederations Cup as well, though we don't see much of that, on a global stand, do we really? But the first 2 competitions, I just said then, like I say, everyone gets involved. And you see the sheer amount of supporters from all over the world. And they all get together, and it's always interesting to see, because we know what the English fans are like, we know what UK based are like, but it's always fascinating, like the South Americans, the Africans, they all bring something different as supporters to games. We say about South Africa, the Vuvuzelas, the most frustrating thing I've ever heard in my life when the World Cup was there, but they again brought something different.
Atmosphere, sound, atmosphere. If we felt they were annoying, but it was part, it's part of their culture over there. So bringing a cultural thing into it, weren't they? Again, Chris, just before we move on, it's going to be interesting in 2026. We're talking like 19 months now until the World Cup. It's obviously in America, Mexico, and Canada. So it's going to be very interesting, isn't it? It's going to be spread across the continent there and into Canada as well. So it will be very, very interesting to see how that goes. A lot of the big stadiums in America, they're incredible. So it's going to be, that's a different vibe again, isn't it?
And I think as well, I like how this plays out now. I think we did it for the Euros, didn't we? Like the COVID one, didn't we? When it was sort of dotted around England, and then I think was it France and Germany and what have you. I think I like those sort of things, and I think the plan was it for the Euros? The next Euros is in the UK, isn't it? Where it's England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, or Northern Ireland at least. I like that, and I think people get to see like the whole country, don't they? The grounds are different as well. You know, I mean, we've spoke about the grounds on here on the podcast, and I think people who've never witnessed the grounds, the atmosphere, even it can be in the same country, different grounds bring different atmospheres. And I think that's really intriguing to see as well. And I like the concept of integrating the countries with you to make it a bigger spectacle.
Just moving on to internationals, I'll talk about this briefly, of course, because we've got quite a bit to get through within the allotted time that we've got. Fantastic from Wales to qualify the back in the A groups. There'll be no playoff for them now. I thought Turkey were home and hosed against Montenegro, because where Montenegro were in the group. And Craig Bellamy's done a fantastic job. And you know what? Rotation, so much rotation. He made changes for that second game against Iceland. They didn't have many chances against Turkey away, which is probably going to be expected. The penalty was never a penalty for Turkey. They missed it, subsequent penalty. So we got through it. But 3 wins and 3 draws for Craig Bellamy. 12 points from the 6 games, Chris. Turkey losing 3-1 to Montenegro. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I think we were braced for a playoff. Just fantastic start for Craig Bellamy.
Yeah, well, I was speaking to one of my friends, John, big on Wales. So I always get my, his interpretation, like I do with you, on how they're going. Because like I say, I don't really follow as much international anymore because it frustrates the life out of me. But he's always said to me that he was a bit worried, a bit wary. And I think we spoke about Craig Bellamy when it got announced, didn't it, on here? But he said he's got them purring. He said it's attacking football. He said he's got Harry Wilson playing like De Bruyne. I don't know whether that was a joke because I haven't seen it myself. But, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have thought Craig Bellamy would be the guy. But it's good he's been given a chance and obviously he's proven himself massively. He's obviously got a good coaching staff behind him. You probably know more than I do with that. But it's great to see. And I think Wales have made such massive strides in the last 10 years, from Gary Speed, rest in peace for Gary Speed. But, they've made so much big strides. The youth players that are coming through Wales now are fantastic. And we're seeing a lot more now in the Premier League, which is great.
Josh Sheehan played. Liam Cullen got 2 goals against Iceland, plays for Swansea. Literally, I think maybe just before the international break, his contract was coming up at Swansea. They've agreed terms.
Right.
To me, he looks like a Premier League player, but he's sticking with Swansea. Or, Swansea now, because they've got him tied down to a contract, will get money for him. Maybe they were looking at it in that respect where, if they'd have left it, he'd be going for nothing in the summer. But he got a brace. Brennan Johnson assisted, fantastic, got a goal. Harry Wilson, great finish. Them two, they've been playing so well at club level, Chris. It was expected those two have got to keep it going now. And Joe Allen came off the bench as well.
I didn't realise he was still playing.
He brought him back into the squad, Bellamy, and I think it's helped like the likes of Jordan James and stuff. You can kind of understand that the older head. I don't think he's going to play particularly a lot of football, but it's his wealth of experience, of course. Yeah. It's going to help them, and it's great. It was great that he rotated a little bit in the second game. No disrespect to Robert Page. He just ran his course. I think we were quite good defensively under him. Didn't score many goals. We're not known for scoring goals, but 4 against Iceland, who, Iceland beat England.
Yeah, not long ago.
How long ago? They played some good stuff in that game. Idager Johnson's son scored as well the other night. They had chances, Chris. I'd say 4-1 probably flattered this. I was made up, but it didn't tell the whole story. Danny Ward had to make some good saves as well along the way, but just made up for them and made it for Craig Bellamy. He got carded as well.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Bellamy you won't believe this. You won't believe what I'm going to say. We know how he is, aggressive and stuff as a player. He was only talking to the 4th official about something. He wasn't being aggressive or anything in nature. I said, It was daft. They even said on commentary, it was crazy. It was crazy. But thank God there's no playoff. And now he can look at the World Cup qualifiers and stuff now, can't he?
Yeah, and I think that's, it's brilliant to see. And I mean, you're coming from like having Gareth Bale, who, you can't deny what he brought to Wales when he played for them, because he played with his heart on his sleeve for Wales, didn't he? And we could all see that. And he was heavily reliant from Wales, wasn't he? From all the players, all ran through Gareth Bale. And I think, when he retired, you did worry a bit to see who Wales standout's going to be, because obviously, like I said, we're heavily reliant on what Gareth Bale was. But what I've seen now, and I've seen before Robert Page obviously got let go, and then I just said before, it's the young talent coming through. Stuart Nathan Broadhead, a former youth player at Everton, he's getting in, and it's fantastic to see. The youth level. I think sometimes I do agree with certain people I speak to about Wales, and you've had slim pickings in the past, haven't you? Having to pick players out of lower leagues who don't really fit the international level against the bigger clubs, when you need someone who's going to take things by the scruff of the neck.
Absolutely.
And as my dog here,
the dog's getting involved here.
He wants to know. But no, it's great to see, as you said, Stuart, and it's at ease for, say, Craig Bellamy, as you said, where he can now chill and then focus on the World Cup, which I'm sure he'll want to be a part of when it goes to America.
Joe Rodon played well at the back for both games as well. He was absolutely fantastic, especially against Turkey on the Saturday. He came in for criticism and stuff. He's over in France, isn't he? Sorba Thomas has been getting games. He played him against Turkey. Obviously, he was on the bench the other night. But again, he's changing it where he sees fit. Hopefully the goals can continue as well, because they're just not known. They're not known for scoring mass amount of goals. Even when we had Ramsey and Bale at peak, do you know what I mean? It'd be 2-1, 1-0. You might get a 3-1 here and there. But yeah, hopefully in an attacking sense, I suppose it's just getting the balance. But fantastic, absolutely made up for him. And a great start for Bellamy. He's worked in the company. Love Gary Speed to pieces. I know, like, obviously when Gary Speed passed, so I'm sure a lot of stuff he's picked from the managers, Chris Coleman as well. Even when he was a player, when we had Mark Hughes, Mark Hughes was decent for Wales. He really was. Unlucky not to qualify. But yeah, all the best to the lads. They've got a bit of a breather now, I think, till March. And yeah, we'll look forward to that. Chris, do we want to talk about the FA Cup and obviously no replays, or do you like to do some Premier League previewing?
Let's touch on the FA Cup, because obviously I know the Premier League is fresh because it's coming back tomorrow. But the FA Cup, I know that we were going to talk about this right at the beginning when we started this podcast, but obviously things got in the way in different news and stuff. But obviously now we know the rules are coming into play, aren't we? What I find with this, and I think I'm not the only one on here, and I think there's lots of people who feel the same as I do. I am not happy with it being scrapped, Stuart. The FA Cup is the love of the game. FA Cup was one of the biggest cup competitions throughout the world. People tuned in for the FA Cup in different countries because the spectacle, what lower league clubs could do to the higher league teams, get knocked out by teams that are in, the Conference League. You're looking at teams that are getting knocked out in League One, League Two, even the Championship. Some of the teams breaking in and getting to the final. You look at Millwall, and Tim Cahill and what he did in that competition for them. But all this resonates to the money that these lower league clubs, get from these replays, and to take it away from them, I just feel is downright disgusting, because they earn the right, if they've drawn, to take it back to their place, or go, to say Old Trafford or the Emirates, and now that's gone, where they were doing a bit more money on these travels, because it most likely would be on TV and would help them financially, maybe half a season, or maybe sometimes a full season, because they've maybe generated a bit of money, with the television, and maybe if it's a home game and it's a replay, the support that would come to the ground. But that's taken away now because of the too many games that the Champions League or the Europa League teams are having, and I just don't agree with it. And I think it's disgusting what they've done to lower league teams, because I said, Stuart, this is what they have, and this is the money and the spectacle now taken away, where they could, say United could play Chesterfield. Let's just say, for example, I know they're in the conference, but they could get a draw and get to Old Trafford, and that means so much to them, the supporters, the money. But now they could go out on penalties. Not saying that they could win on penalties, but you know what the penalties are like. It's a look of the draw at the time. It doesn't resonate with me. The FA Cup has always been the lower league teams. They earn the right for a replay.
TV revenue as well, and when clubs had a sponsor come in for one game because they had the exposure, they changed the sponsor on the kit. A lot of the non-league, wasn't it? Of course, there's so many ways of looking at it, Chris. If you played at your place, and you're taking on a Premier League team, say for argument's sake, you're going to be on the TV, aren't you? Yeah. But if it's not that big game at Old Trafford where there's 70-odd thousand in, and you're getting half the gate receipts, I think that's how they work it normally.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It's just alarming. I don't know. Are they looking at it about how many games there are now? Is that coming into it? We've spoken about this.
Yeah.
Lee McAteer said last week, obviously, he was saying about Tranmere, the amount of games they had to play. They didn't have as big of a pre-season because they had so many games within the calendar for the year. I'm just trying to look at it from that point of view. But the lost revenue, that's the biggest thing of all, is now with this.
Well, like I said, it affects the clubs from the lower divisions, maybe not so in the Championship, but League One, League Two, the Vanarama conferences. You're looking about, you're looking at the money they earn, and to get on the TV, playing like you said against the likes of Man City, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, and it all goes on. And and that's exposure for them, and that's taken away. Yeah, okay, they might get it for the draw in the new rules, but like I said, I feel like when they earn the replay, it's a massive deal for them. And that's gone now because obviously there's too many games. And I think that you're looking at the teams in the Champions League, and I say everyone who's in the European competitions in this country are complaining, obviously, the sheer amount of games. Well, don't have them in the competition then.
It's so interesting. They've got that Club World Cup in the summer as well, haven't they? City and Chelsea. We've spoken about that.
Yeah, the new rules.
Various times we have brought that up again. Going back to these teams, mate, it's like it's everything. It's the fan experience, isn't it? You got to take that into account. It's their biggest game of the year, potentially, that replay, if they haven't played in the big stadium in the previous game. And
yeah,
it's crazy. It's like I can kind of understand it with the League Cup in terms of the extra time getting scrapped. Because obviously teams are having to go for it, weren't they? Knowing that there's going to be a penalty shootout potentially. So I can kind of understand that. And I know it's the lesser of the two, and the majesty, the history of the FA Cup. Of course, we are looking at it from that point of view, but it's not the same, is it?
No, and
it's not the same competition like it used to be when we were growing up and when it predated us, when we were on the planet.
Well, like I said, it was a spectacle, wasn't it? And you got to look at the past winners. A lot of teams have won that and have disappeared out of the league, or even or are in lower leagues now and have been there for a long time. But at one point in the 80s to the 70s, 60s, they won the FA Cup, didn't they? And that's something to cherish. For us, that's the only competition that we've seen Everton ever win in our lifetime. So you cherish it a bit more, don't you? Because that's the first thing you saw. But for lower league teams, as you said, it's the biggest game of the year. It's the revenue, the spotlight. And I don't know. I know that they could still get the spotlight and a bit of the revenue in, one game. But if you're looking at it as a replay, that's two lots of money. And that's now been taken away because, stupid rules where they will opt, as you say, for the Club World Cup, and I just think the FA should be fighting more for this competition at most because it's one of the oldest. Oh,
Chris?
Yes.
Hello.
Mate. Yeah,
I am here.
Yeah.
The computer's had a bit of a flid. I was going to go onto my mobile. That was my plan. So just stick with me, mate. I'll get my, if I can get the bloody, I will.
Yeah, no problem. I was just saying, Stu, about things being taken away, and I think the FA should fight more for a competition that's, historical, and it should be given more precipice over the likes of the Club World Cup, and he's gone. Well, that's my opinion anyway, guys and girls. I think most people should, resonate with the FA Cup, no matter what team you support or what pyramid your team is in. It's an historical competition, and I think if it's in your country, and you might have one in Spain, Romania, wherever, Luxembourg, but you'd want your country's FA per se to be more controlling of that and make sure that the competitions in your country and your leagues stand out more than the likes of the Club World Cup. That means absolutely nothing to English football.
Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, sorry about that, mate.
That's fine.
I apologise. It's had a flid it has, but yeah. Are we going to move on to the Premier League?
Yeah, I've had my rant.
If we if we pick a couple of matches,
okay.
I'm just trying to connect the headphones. I'll edit this. I'll have to edit this down once we're there. But I think maybe talk about Ipswich and Man United. Obviously, Ruben Amorim's first game, mate.
Well, you know what? It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think Ruud van Nistelrooy, in a couple of games he had, and we spoke about it when Mike was on here, when Ruud got announced, as just a mainstay for the time being until Ruben came in. Did a fantastic job, United. Got them moving, didn't he? It's going to be interesting to see how he works out with the team in Man United and where their confidence are at. Yet another manager that they're having to change the styles for and learn under different plays, I suppose. Under Ruben, I like Ruben. Don't get me wrong, fantastic in sporting, but coming to Premier League is a whole different story. But we have seen Portuguese managers in the past come over and do really, really, really well. Jose Mourinho being one of them. I think it's a good start for him. I know Ipswich got a win, didn't they, in the last round of the Premier League, which much needed. But I think the players are going to be up for this, aren't they? I think the whole new manager bounce, a different perspective. Players who weren't getting in under Ten Hag have got maybe more eyes looking at them, so they could burst in and get themselves a first team spot. But like I said, it's a good opening game for Ruben. Just to show people what's going to be coming forward. Well, what's going to go forward for United in throughout the Premier League under him.
I think from what I was reading as well, he was talking about tactics and stuff like that and what he needs to change. I think maybe how Ten Hag was playing. Every manager's different, aren't they?
Yeah.
Every manager's different. He's going to have things he needs to tweak. I heard that going further along here before the January window, I've heard Chelsea are looking at Gyökeres. Now, you'd be led to believe he'd want Gyökeres to come with him, but I mean, have they got enough money? This is the thing, isn't it? Ten Hag had spent a lot of money during the summer, so you got to wonder what he's going to have in terms of money in January. We know the January window's quiet, historically anyway, but Gyökeres is on fire. Banged a load of goals in for Sweden across the 2 games. He's on 31 goals now in total, and we're only in November going into December. It's crazy. Then he's getting knocked. Oh, he's playing in Portugal, and they're in Group C of the Nations League. You still got to put the chances away, haven't you?
Hold on a minute. Haaland wasn't exactly playing for big clubs, was he? Before Dortmund, Salzburg, Austrian, aren't they? They're not exactly a big club, are they? But he's banging them in them. He bangs in goals for Norway, but you don't see Norway, well, not for a long time in most competitions, do you? I think people are just deluded to think that he wouldn't come. And don't forget, he's played in the Premier League. He's played in English football with Coventry. He knows the country. He knows how it works, and I think going to Sporting has elevated his style and his growth fantastically. It pains me to talk about it, Stuart, because there's a player that we could have signed for just under 20 million before he went to Sporting, before Sporting were interested.
Yeah.
And that, like I say, it pains me because I think what a player he could have been for us, and he was the right right striker, right style. But yeah, I think if United or Chelsea get him in, I think he'll be fantastic. And like I said,
Brighton didn't do Brighton-like business when they sold him to
no,
Coventry.
they didn't. No, they didn't.
1 million. So we didn't pick him up probably when he was going to be very, very cheap. Now what's he worth? Because he's just done it like he did it last season, and he's doing it now even more so. Again, but Brighton, it was very unlike Brighton that he was allowed to go for what he went for. I was like, but sometimes these things happen. He's gone away and he's done brilliant. He had a good solid time with Coventry in the Championship, and he's took it to the next level. He destroyed City the other week. He absolutely destroyed them. It was amazing, and good on him, I say. But I do think Sporting are going to struggle to keep hold of him now, and there's going to be a lot of suitors for him. Could Arsenal be looking at him? They need a striker.
Agreed, and that's a good shout. That I think, like for Arsenal, that's the missing piece for them, isn't it? Really, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about pricing, Stuart. It's going to be ridiculous, isn't it? You're going to be looking, unless he's got a release clause that's half decent. We're looking like less than 80-90 million, because I think that's what Sporting are going to be wanting, considering how crazy prices for players are these days. I think he's definitely coming back to the Premier League. Maybe the pull of Ruben at Man United might be the obvious one, because he's played under him. And, United still is a prestigious club. It's still got all that history. And, I'm sure he wouldn't say no to that.
I was going to ask as well, obviously, a couple of injuries for Ipswich, for Kieran McKenna. Hurst, who's been playing really well, actually, he is out. And Calvin Phillips is a doubt. Obviously, Calvin Phillips is trying to resurrect his career after not a great time going to City. I think a lot of people felt he was going to struggle getting in the team anyway. I think, he was always going to be a squad player there. It didn't really work out for him at West Ham. So he is a doubt tomorrow. I was reading just a bit of news on them. Again, I think prediction time, mate. I'm going to go 3-1 United.
I'd probably go 3-0. I don't think Ipswich, I mean, and I don't think they've got enough to score. I think watching them against us, and the passing and the movement is fantastic. I just don't think they've got enough to score. I just, I think United are going to be really up for this, aren't they? With Ruben being in charge for the first time. And I said this when Ruud, took the game to Leicester for his first game out, and you saw the scoreline and you saw the performance. Yeah, I don't think Ipswich scoring. I see United, showing bits and bobs, but being too strong, obviously, for Ipswich.
And I'm just looking at, I think we'll pick one more. I know it's got to be brief this week. We normally cover more games and do more predictions, don't we? But I think the one that's sticking out for me is the late kickoff tomorrow night there at the bottom of the screen. City and Spurs. Now, City, a 4-game losing streak. Pep's obviously signed a 2-year extension. It's all signed, sealed and delivered after the talk of him maybe stepping away at the end of the season. He is carrying on. Spurs lost to Ipswich last time out as well. So this game has got huge, there's huge predicaments here for both teams. Both teams need a win. City, who hadn't lost 4 games in a row since 2006 before this winless run. But Chris, Spurs need it as well if they're going to keep up with, the top 4 chasers and the top 6 chasers, aren't they?
And also, just to put it out there, aren't Spurs City's bogey team? They always seem, and I know it's mostly at their ground, at the Tottenham Hotspur ground. I can't remember. Yeah, it's called that, isn't it? They do get the better of City, don't they, Spurs? And I think they have been a bit of a bogey team for them. But I think now Pep signed this new contract. I think City are going to settle down now. I think that's probably caused a lot of problems, but I don't think people have realised in the back. I think the nervousness of not knowing if Pep's going to be there probably has unsettled the players, because a lot of players have come to City for Pep, haven't they? So I think now it's all, as you say, he signed a 2-year contract. Whether or not he stays for 2 years, I think he'll settle City now.
I think they're missing Rodri. I know that's obvious. Yeah, I was speaking I was speaking to Dan about it. That's just that's by the by that, because you know full well we look at him for Spain during the summer. And
Yeah, but we
just
both know.
everything, and it is, you don't like to put it on one player and say one player makes the team, because that's not the case. But he does so much in there. There's just nobody better than him in that role. We have spoken about him, God knows how many times. He's out for the season. Again, I didn't like when Pep was bemoaning injuries, because you look at their squad, his version of injuries against everybody else is a total different kettle of fish. Now, what I do like about Pep, he has tried academy players. He pushes academy players as well, as much as they've gone for players. I will give him that. Some clubs, Everton, are bad for it, notoriously bad. We don't bring enough youth through, do we? That's been the case. Take Dyche out the equation. That's been the case for donkey's years, hasn't it? But with Pep, he does try the young ones, doesn't he, as well? But I wasn't having that. We've got injuries. I'm not being funny. Everyone's having injuries.
A lot this season as well. Mostly every other team have got a fair few players out, haven't they? It's not just Man City, but as you said, their injury list, they've got like a second, third, fourth team that is still better than the majority of teams in the Premier League. But I definitely agree with Rodri. As you just said, we spoke about Rodri so much on this podcast when we're talking about players, haven't we? He's always going to be missing. I think, like Fernandinho was in his peak at Man City. I think they struggled when he was injured, wasn't he? Before obviously he got a bit older and was pushed back a bit more. But I think it's just finding the settlement, isn't it? And I think with passes going back to Pep getting that new 2-year contract, I think that'll settle the players down. And I think they'll beat. I think they'll beat Spurs. I think this whole contract situation is gonna. I'm repeating myself, but I think it's gonna settle everything down. And then I think you'll see City slowly but surely start to get themselves back on a roll.
They're 5 points off, Chris, so he cannot afford another slip up. We know over the course, like Liverpool will probably hit a period where they might lose 2 or something. I mean, it went later, didn't it? It was into March and they went into April, May and lost it then. There's going to come a time where Slot hits a bit of sticky form. It does happen, but it's 90 points plus a season, isn't it? The top 2. That's how high they've been scoring. That's why Arsenal, over years, Arsenal would have won the league, wouldn't they, with 80 odd points? Yeah. It's just they've been so good, but there will be some patchy bits for Liverpool somewhere down the line, but City can't afford to have another patchy bit, really, now, can they, surely? Or am I blowing the whistle a bit too early on that?
No, because you're not used to seeing Man City lose 4 in a row, are you? To be honest with you, they might lose one, draw a couple, go on a run, and might have like one shocking loss to a certain team, but you don't see them, consecutively struggle, to win a game. So that has come a shock to, I suppose, well, actually, most definitely for their fans, but for us outside, football fans. Excuse me. But I think they'll pick it up. I think Rodri is a loss, and I think they can get getting at. If I get the words right, they can be gotten at. Sorry, because Rodri's not there, because as you've alluded to, he does so much, and he's a player you can't replace.
One player they are going to miss, Mateo Kovacic, is out now as well. So it's a similar sort of role within that team. I'm not disputing they're having injuries before the City fans get on my case about it. That's another. Kovacic has been playing. Kovacic's been playing relatively well, but look, it's the internationals again causing problems then for domestic games. Do you know what I mean? Because he was playing for Croatia. I watched the Scotland game. So again, there's no disputing they're having injuries, but they've got a wealth of players within that squad. That's what I'm getting at. He has got players that he can bring in. I still think, but it's integral players, I guess. It's his first team, isn't it? That's what he's getting at.
Well, do you feel like maybe for City is, try and get themselves as close as they can to Liverpool now till the January transfer window? Does he go and get another, a defensive midfielder like Rodri? Obviously, you're not going to get Rodri anywhere else, because he's a one of a kind. But does he go to the window now and go look for someone that can be a replacement whilst Rodri's out, and maybe something in the future going forward.
It'd be interesting, won't it? What will they do? What will they do? I know Oscar Bob's out as well, isn't he? There's several players out. I'm just thinking of the ones that are coming to mind as I'm thinking about it. But yeah, they can't. If that gap, worst case scenario, if that gap went to 10 points, I think they're going to struggle. So they need to win it, but then Spurs need to get up the table. It's very tight in that area where Spurs are, isn't it? But again, we've spoken about Ange. He'll play a certain way, but then he can't. The next game, they're losing, but they've been hammering teams 4 or 5 in the games that they've been playing really well in. It's strange, isn't it? But, they need to be careful, because if they lose, and the likes of Brighton, Forest, Newcastle at their win over the weekend, it's going to be hard for them as well.
I think they found it. I think he's found it quite hard this season. I don't knock Ange, because I think me and you both have, a lot of respect for him, because I just think he's no nonsense. He's quite old school in his way. He sets his team out. The only thing that worries me sometimes is the high line they do play, but I suppose they do get away with it with, Van der Ven, who's is fantastic, Stuart, but he's absolutely full of pace. So 9 times out of 10, you do see, Mickey get back, don't you, and make that tackle. But I just think this season has been very yo-yo for a lot of clubs, to be fair. There's, as we talk about City having a bit of a poor run, Arsenal have had a poor run. The likes of Villa have shone up, haven't they? Nottingham Forest, who have, shocked a lot of people, considering the last couple of seasons they've been down where we are. And they have, come to a bit of prevalence, haven't they? I suppose it's confidence, and if you can keep winning games, it builds and builds, doesn't it? Absolutely. And I just think a lot of teams are a bit inconsistent, aren't they? We're looking now from the 5th spot maybe to the 10th spot, where we normally know where certain teams would be at a certain part of the season. But losing to Ipswich for Spurs, which is a shocker, really, because you wouldn't expect that. But, that's the beauty of the game. But a lot of teams have lost certain games like that so far in the season that, like I said, it's very inconsistent, which is, it's good for, for a sort of those fans that don't support any of those clubs, but, they watch the game and, it's brilliant for that sort of thing. But as a supporter, you must be pulling your hair out, because
that's it. Yeah, I'd say, sorry about the technology issues there. The laptop, I need to go and see what's gone on with that. I apologise for that, and apologise for the start. The mic was on when I came on, then it's gone to red. I don't know. So yeah, it's been an absolute disaster with the tech. But yes, Chris, I think just before we close out, of course, the socials for everyone to find us on, please, mate.
Yeah, no problem. Well, as always, you'll find us on X/Twitter, however you want to pronounce it out. You'll find us on Facebook. You'll find us on TikTok. Find us on Instagram. Find us on YouTube. You find us on all audio platforms. All you need to do is search Football Then and Now into any of those social medias or audio platforms, and you'll see our beautiful mugs on your screen or our beautiful voices along your headphones. And you can listen to us wherever you go. You want to have, nice little walk with your dog. You can have me and Stuart in your ear.
The raspy tones of Human Palmer. I don't think I've ever called myself raspy, and neither of you been called raspy. But we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Yeah, definitely. No, thank you very much. Great to have you back, by the way.
Great to be back, mate.
I missed you last week, mate. Great. Thank you to Brady. Thank you to John, and thank you to Lee last week as well. And Brady was saying he'd like to come back on. I think we're going to do some bulk taping, aren't we? Some Christmas content, so we're ahead, and we've got loads of stuff. And you'll see more of Brady, obviously Aston Villa fan, as we're going forward. But great having you back, mate.
Yeah, like I say, it's great to be back. Obviously now I can try and get it a bit more consistently. I keep popping out, don't I? And it's been a bit annoying, because obviously I love doing the show with you. So hopefully from now onwards I can be a bit more consistent on the show.
We will be back next week for episode 37 of Football Then and Now. We'll have a bit more nostalgia, I'm sure. Chris will have on this date in football history. for whichever date that is when we tape it, record it, send it live. Hopefully there'll be no technology issues next week, God almighty. I'm going to have to cut some of this for the audio and then the reruns, but just one of them things today. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you very, very soon for episode 37 of Football Then and Now.
See ya.
Football Then and Now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.